Hello, this is Stacy Tuttle with Bridges 527. I'm going to try to shed a little light on the Cruella movie that just came out. This is a complicated one, and this may be a little bit longer video because there's quite a lot in here. I've actually seen it a couple times just trying to wrap my brain around how to even think about unpacking some of this for the idea of finding faith in film. There will be spoilers in here, so know that if you haven't seen it, I will totally be giving away some major plot issues. So if that annoys you, turn it off. Watch me afterwards. But I want to back up a little bit and just say, I've talked to a lot of friends. A lot of my friends did not like it. I have some that really did. I was a little more on the fence, and here's why. I was fully expecting it to be very dark. I was not expecting it to be good for kids. So I really went going, if I had children, how would I feel about them watching this? I have friends with little kids who have let them watch it. They think it's fine. Others who would never let their kids watch it. So I'm not trying to say what's appropriate or not for you and your family. I am telling you, though, that you should probably be educated before you go and just be certain, because this is not a lighthearted, happy-go-lucky Disney movie at all. I would say this is more along the lines of the Joker movie that came out, which I did not see, but that had to do with mental health. This is along those same lines. So the previews, if you watch the previews, I think give you a pretty good feel for what you're in for with the movie. It's probably darker than you expect from the previews, but I just want to be sure and lay some groundwork. I'm not trying to police whether people should or shouldn't do this with their children, but I do want to give some insight into what to expect. If you're cautious about what your children see, maybe think about it. I want to lay out ways that the movie's really rich. I liked it because I didn't go in expecting to be entertained as much as I did expecting to be challenged in how I see the world and given something to really think about. And in that respect, it really worked. I will say that most of us were a little disappointed from it's not a funny movie. It's not happy-go-lucky. It's not very redemptive. So a lot of the things that are like touchy-feely, warm kind of things that make me say a movie's really fun, this one's heavy. And so it's not fun in that way. The fashion was amazing. Emma Stone and Emma Thompson were beyond brilliant. So there was a lot in there that was stimulating for me in a lot of ways, but it wasn't like fun. So let's get into the story just a little bit. I've tried to write some bullet points to maybe funnel me a little bit. I will say, I think this is a movie very much about mental health. You've got Cruella and Emma Thompson's character, whose name escapes me. What is wrong? It's been a minute since I saw the movie. The villain, the true villain, is Emma Thompson's character, and she turns out to be Cruella's mother. You do not know that. That's a huge spoiler. Sorry. But she is a fashion mogul. She's brilliant in the fashion world, supposedly, but actually she's kind of dried up her ideas a little bit. And so she's relying on, all of her creators and things to be the genius. And so Cruella comes along, who's brilliant. But the mother is a narcissist, a true narcissist. And so you really see that selfishness play out, and you see she is so afraid of anyone, like down the line. Cruella basically says, "You're going to kill me because I upstaged you." I mean, she's shocked. Like that's how severe her narcissism is, that because someone dares to upstage her, she's ready to kill them. And she, there's evidence that she's killed lots of people in the past who dared to be any threat to her genius, to make her look bad in any way. So she's a very dark character, and we really have no redemption in her. She's just she's the true villain. But you have a hard thing when you have two main characters that are both villains. It's hard to make a redemptive story. When Cruella turns out being the villain of the next thing, this ends up becoming more like, I would say, honestly, this reminded me more of like Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness or something, where it's just a descent into darkness as it goes in so many ways. So Cruella, as she's young, was raised by somebody else that she thinks is her mother, who's like the best person in the world, super sweet person. And is always trying to help call out of her the good person. And you see Cruella, her hair is split down the middle, black and white. And I think she is very much the picture of someone with either, whether it's split personality or DID, dissociative identity disorder, schizophrenia, bipolar, any of those things. I fully believe she probably demonstrates reactive attachment disorder also. If these things don't mean anything to you, I'm not going to try to explain it. For those people who are in dealing with those things, it's going to resonate. So, but she is very detached from things, and she's very much split in her responses to things. So we see good Cruella, and then later we start to see bad Cruella, and even her name's changed. She goes from Estella to Cruella. And you hear this dialogue that's very much ping-ponging. One minute she's super fun and sweet, and the next minute there's this dark, twisted kind of thing coming out, and you watch her go from really trying to be the good person that her adopted mom called her out to being, and then that person dies, and then she's trying to be really good in her own strength. And then eventually she just snaps, some things happen, she gets wronged, and that sense of justice flares up, and she is grieving, and she finally goes, there's 5 stages of grief, but I'm gonna add a 6th one. I'm gonna add revenge. So the whole rest of the movie is about her getting revenge against the person that she has realized killed her mother. So here's some interesting things that come out of this. When her adopted mom, who she thought was her mother, but realizes later was adopted, dies, she sees it. And again, from the perspective of psychology and children and the way they see the world, she fully believes that that is her fault. And you see this with kids who are products of divorce or different things, and their parents get angry or whatever. They think that they are responsible for their parents' actions. I could have done something. So she believes she caused her mom's death and carries all this shame and guilt. So she's trying to be a good person out of a wrong motivation. She's trying to, part of it is trying to please her mom, but it's really because she feels so guilty about what she did. She's carried so much shame all her life. She then realizes it wasn't her, it was this other woman that killed her mother, who later becomes her real mom. So adopted mom dies by the real mom's hand. She saw the whole thing, then realizes who these women actually are in relation to her. She flips. And then when she realizes that that is her mother, we've got some major issues of identity. And so the mother has been finding her identity in her performance, not in who she is, but it's always in what she does. And so everyone else is a threat to that, because if I'm not the queen of the fashion world, then who am I? So I have to kill anyone who is a threat to my identity. And then you see the daughter, Cruella, going, okay, maybe I thought I had a mother who was the best person ever. And I felt like a failure because I wasn't as good as her, but I was trying to be, and I believed that seed was in me. Now that's gone, and I realized I was never a part of her. This crazy psychotic woman is actually my mother, so now I've got identity issues that are even worse than before. If that's who I am, then maybe that's just who I am and there's no help for it. And she embraces the darkness because this is now her identity. And she makes a huge shift at that point. So I think, some of the things that we see in this movie, first off, I'm like, there's so many things. It really is a fascinating movie if you're looking at it from psychology and who the Lord is and all this stuff. Let's see. First off, people so often give you what you expect of them. So when her sweet mom was speaking life into her, she was becoming a better person and trying. And then when the crazy mom steps in, she's basically, it's an identity thing where she believes that's all she's capable of. Well, this is what I came from. I'm going to be like her. Never mind. So she always believes she's brilliant because everyone sees that. But she also has been told all the time that she's crazy. And she's like, if people want a bad guy, I'll give them a bad guy. They believe that about her. So she lets him believe it, which leads to the power of perception. There's this whole thing about she shows up in a black and white coat that looks like the Dalmatians. She didn't kill the dogs, but she is more than willing to let everyone think that she did. Because again, she's like, I will be happy I'll use that to my advantage. If they think that's what I am, then fine, I'll be it. Or I'll at least let them think that I am. So that we really see that play out. Excuse me. And then pride this is not a redemptive movie so much as it is a cautionary tale. You have the pride of the mother. I'm so annoyed I can't look up her name right now to clarify that. It's a real fail on my part. But she is so driven by her ego, by her pride, by her narcissism. There is no love for anyone else in her. It is so self-centered, so self-focused that it is literally her entire destruction. So that pride takes the one person who was her best ally, her best asset, even before she knew it was her daughter. She had this designer who is by far the best she's ever had. And because she tries to control, manipulate, and squash her, she steals her designs. Because she does not treat her with the dignity that she deserves and try to help her grow, because she's threatened by her, she tries to squash her. And then Cruella at that point says, never mind, if I can't, because she worshiped this woman. She was so happy to work for her. They would have been amazing partners. They would have been in a brilliant team. But instead, she made an enemy out of what would have been her greatest asset, and then actually tried to kill it. So the very thing that she loved was inspiring talent, and she ends up trying to kill inspired talent because it's a threat. Like, it is so the way pride works in our lives that it destroys the very thing we honor, when we let pride take control. So there's the idea of vengeance. And I just want to point out, like, the Lord says that vengeance is his. So obviously this is not Christian story, but we see Christian themes and things all the time. When we do not trust the Lord to take care of vengeance and we try to do it, things get out of hand, and it ends up, we get burned with those who dig a pit will fall into it, the Bible says. So she digs a pit for her daughter, tries to kill her, and she ends up dying by the very means that she tried to kill herself, kill her daughter. So literally she dug a pit and fell into she falls off a cliff. The very cliff she tried to throw her daughter off of, she ends up, no, I'm sorry, I'm mistaken. She does not actually, but she frames herself in that. And so she does dig a pit and fall into it. But anyways, and it involves falling. This is my only point. There was a lot of falling off of cliffs, and there's a scene where Cruella gets burned alive. She ends up being rescued, but you don't know that. So again, just because I'm pointing out, this is really dark for your children, just beware. The whole burning scene was pretty intense, and yet weirdly detached. The whole thing is very detached, which again, as a movie that's kind of dealing with reactive attachment disorder, I think the detached nature of the storytelling is somewhat fitting for that. So also, I just want to point out, and then I'll be done, Cruella is working so hard in the beginning to be good in her own strength, and it is against her nature in so many ways. She really struggles to be good, and she tries to be something she's not. But here's what I mean. The creativity that she has never gets directed towards being redemptive. So she's creative, she's brilliant, she's, all these things, and she puts that into being a thief. She puts that into taking down this empire. She puts that into all these things. God's not asking her to be passive. He puts things in us. He creates warriors. He creates creative people. He does people that have amazing strategies for things. Now, he used her to take down an enemy in the mogul, in this fashion world. I mean, if we're putting this in spiritual terms, her brilliance was turned to do that. It was kind of like Samson going and fighting the Philistines. He did it in his own strength. Well, it was the Lord's strength, but he didn't submit himself to the Lord. So the Lord used his lust to stir up arguments with the Philistines, because he wasn't asking the Lord, how do you want me to take out the Philistines? In the end, when he humbled himself before the Lord, he did more for the kingdom in that one moment than he did all this life combined. But all the time, the Lord was using his sin just as much. All of his sin was still used to accomplish the purposes that God had for him. God wasn't asking him to be less of a man. He wasn't asking him to be nice. He wanted him to wipe out the Philistines. But he did it through his pride and his ego, because he was mad about stuff with women and got his ego offended about some things. And so all of the things that he did were not out of submission to the Lord, but God still used it. So I kind of think that's what's going on here. Like, she had these amazing talents. God gave her a brilliant mind, not just for fashion, but for a lot of things. And had she used it well, she could have taken over the fashion industry in a way that would have been honoring to the Lord. But instead, she does it in a very twisted way. So I think the temptation is to look at that and go, she should have just been a really nice, meek little person. That's not necessarily who God made her to be. However, because she still operated in sin and never understood God's purposes for her life, she was trying in her own strength to be something she wasn't made to be. And it's like putting that ball underwater. Eventually it just pops up because she didn't know where to channel it. So I think if she had done a better job of understanding her identity and like how God made her to be, and not just going, oh my gosh, I must be psycho because my mom is, or everyone says that I am. If she had understood her brilliance and understood that God can take care of vengeance and that's not on me, coming from a right heart, all those gifts could have been used in a much better way. I feel like I got a little bit off target of what I was trying to say there. But anyways, we'll see how it turns out. I will also say, and like I said, I'm wrapping up here, but the when you see, I think in the world, like storytelling used to be very much black or white. There were villains, there were good people, and suddenly we're seeing this whole resurgence of those same stories, but giving us understanding and backstory on the villains. And it's just an interesting thing where we're tanking our heroes down a notch. We are no longer wanting them to all be glorified. We see them as flawed human beings, and we're really actively pointing that out to the world. Sometimes we're looking for flaws because we don't trust anybody to be good, which is why most people don't like Superman anymore, because he's too good and too clean, and that makes us, we don't trust it. We don't trust power. We don't trust all these things. But then we take the villains and the weak people, and then we're kind of glorifying them, or at least bringing compassion into it. And there's such a, whoa, excuse me. I don't have a great setup right now. There's such a leveling of the playing field. We're bringing some people down and we're elevating up others. I think we don't want to elevate the sin, but I think it's not all bad to understand like what makes people who they are and to have compassion. So we don't really have compassion for her mother, but we have compassion for her because we start to understand all the horrible things that happened to her, the pain and the misunderstandings and things in her childhood. So there's a lot of compassion that comes through this movie, and we can kind of understand the brokenness and the things that she's operating out of. So I see good in that, but I also think, especially in a kid's movie, which this is not, but it's kind of comes from a kid's story and it's easy to think that it's a kid's movie, it can be really confusing because they don't know who to trust, because there is no clarity about who's good, who's bad, what's, this person we're supposed to be kind of liking is a thief and whatever, and there's no repentance of anything. She's not really redeemed. And that is the point I was missing on the back part earlier when I was like, I missed my point. Ezekiel 36, the Lord talks about, I will give them a new heart and a new spirit. She operates so much out of striving to be better, to be whatever, to be what other people said she should be, rather than asking the Lord, not only who did you make me, but can you help me be that? And as we submit our hearts to the Lord and all the dark places and the sin, He promises not only to help us, but to literally just give us a new heart. We don't have to make ourselves want to be better. We can just ask the Lord to replace what is in us with what is His. So He will give us a new heart. He says, I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh. And I will cause you to want to walk in my ways, to love my word, to be obedient. Like all of these things, we will begin to hate what He hates and love what He loves because of the new heart that is in us. And that's the thing I was trying to get to earlier that I knew I'd missed my point. She does not ask for a new heart. She tries in all of her own strength to change her own nature rather than letting God make her a new creation. And in that new creation, I just think the Lord so lovingly says, let me help you become what I intended you to be, not what other people want you to be, but I will also make you to the point where you can want those things and want the redeemed version of you instead of just giving over to your sinful desires. So that's kind of my wrap on this movie. It's a lot. It's 18 minutes, sorry, almost 19 minutes of video. Super long, but hopefully it will give you some good conversations with other people as you're watching it. And I know one of my friends has dealt with some mental health in her family, and so she particularly really loved it because it really resonated with her and the childhood that she had and some of the struggles of the people in her life and her family. So I think there are a lot of people that will really love and resonate with this movie because it is so near to their own experience. So have good conversations. Hopefully this will help you bring the Lord into it a little bit and look for points of life and connection in that. Okay, thanks.